shame for you.
Yo, what it do, man? Welcome back to the Underestimated Podcast. I am your host once again, Jeremy Orr. Welcome to episode 2, man. Firstly, before we get into what I'm going to be talking about today, I just want to say thank you to everyone who supported episode 1, the launch, the premiere of the podcast. Um, I really do appreciate it, and much love towards all of y'all. Um, so yeah, thank you. Like I said, it's much more things left in store, so this is only the beginning. So you know, let's keep it going. So in today's podcast, I'm going to be ranking every NFL team starting quarterback of 2023. Going through this list is a very tough list to make. Because as you know, not just in football in general, but more specifically the NFL, the quarterback position is the deepest, most talented position in the NFL. So it just felt like the deeper I got into this list, the harder it was to rank players. But I mean, I got it done, and I got a list to present to you all. So obviously, this is an opinionative list, just like you all will have opinions too. So let me know in the comments or through social media what you guys would change up and your feelings towards my podcast. I'm sorry, not my podcast. Well, my podcast too, but my list. Um, so let's get into it. All right. So starting off at number 32, I have Washington Commanders quarterback Sam Howell. Um, Sam Howell only actually played one game for them last season. I'm not exactly sure why they let go of Carson Wentz and allowed him to be a free agent. If I were them, I think anybody would have chose Carson Wentz over Sam Howell. And even so, they still didn't try to make a move in the NFL draft with quarterbacks of the likes of, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, um, you know, so on and so forth. So, yeah, Sam Howell comes in at number 32 for me. In that one game that he did play, he completed 58% of his passes, 9 yards a pass, only one touchdown, one interception, was sacked 3 times, um, and got a total of about 170 yards with a passer rating of 83 and a QBR of 46. So, yeah, I definitely think the biggest concern for the Commanders now is to get them a quarterback. And I mean, there's plenty of them out there. Um, I do know that Teddy Bridgewater is one of the quarterbacks on the market uh, this offseason in free agency. So I would say go out there and get him if I were them. 'Cause I believe Teddy Bridgewater, when healthy, is a quality NFL quarterback. But I don't know what Dan Snyder and them have going on over there in the front office. So that's on them. Um, Now we move to number 31. And coming in at number 31, I have Green Bay Packers quarterback Jordan Love. Um, Jordan Love was drafted a couple of years ago to be the successor to Aaron Rodgers because of Aaron Rodgers' uncertainty about his future for the past few seasons. But I mean, Jordan Love is a great decision maker. He's athletic. He's an exceptional pocket passer with mobility, and actually has an underrated arm compared to most quarterbacks in the league. Um, he already has the confidence not only within himself but his teammates. People of the likes of Aaron Jones and Jared Alexander have already come out and said, that they believe in Jordan, and some of them are kind of putting him over Aaron Rodgers already. But of course, we got to see him play see how he does on the field before we can say that. Last year he only had 4 games played where he completed 57% of his passes for 195 yards, averaged 9 yards a pass, uh, only 1 touchdown but no interceptions. Didn't obtain any sacks. Uh, had a passer rating of 112 and a quarterback. I'm sorry, QBR of 82. I think now will he come in and fill in the role of Aaron Rodgers? Of course, that is hard to do when we talk about one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever lace up his cleats. Um, Obviously, I think it's gonna take him a few years, but I mean, having the mentorship of Aaron Rodgers could also um, be, to his advantage. Um, but I don't think they are a playoff team this year, with or without him. But maybe in 3 or 4 years or so, they could be that. Um, so yeah, that's kind of all I had to say about that Jordan Love situation. All right, coming in at number 30, I have Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback Kenny Pickett. Once again, another quarterback brought in to be a successor to a great quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger. Um, you know, hometown kid, went to school at Pitt. Uh, Actually, is a shifty runner and scrambler. Exceptional arm strength. Nice deep ball. When in rhythm. Uh, he had a completion percentage of 63%, 2,404 yards this season, 6 yards a completion, 7 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, was sacked 27 times, had a passer rating of 77, a QBR of 51, and actually had some pretty good rushing stats as well with 55 carries for 237 yards with about 4 yards a carry and 3 touchdowns and 3 fumbles. So I think as far as Kenny Pickett is concerned, I think the Steelers are going to be a team who need a couple of more seasons under their belt. You got Kenny Pickett, you got George Pickens, who seems to be a promising receiver. Um, you got Pat Fryermuth at the tight end position. So, I mean, you got pieces, and obviously you got Mike Tomlin as the head coach, who's been a winning head coach pretty much his whole career. So I think with more time and experience, this team can be a force to be reckoned with in the future. Like they can get back to that Steelers winning culture, but right now they're just not there. Kind of coming in rebuild mode with the retirement of longtime quarterback Ben Roethlisberger. Number 29, Atlanta Falcons quarterback Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder is a great leader, mobile. I actually thought I became a fan once I saw his playoff run a couple of years ago with the Cincinnati Bearcats. He's explosive, aggressive decision maker, which can be a disadvantage and an advantage to some degree. There's nothing wrong with being aggressive, but I think you have to be smart with your aggressiveness. And I think as long as he develops that trait as opposed to being aggressive, which leads to unwanted and unprecedented mistakes, then I think he'll be okay in this league. He's at the helm now full time. They let go of Marcus Mariota, who's now, I believe, quarterbacking in Las Vegas with the Raiders, behind Jimmy Garoppolo. So yeah, he's a little inconsistent with his throws. He kind of got to be a little more consistent with his throws. I think with time though and proper development, he's going to be a great quarterback in this league. they kind of have still been searching to find that promising quarterback since the departure of Matt Ryan. Matty Ice. That's him and that team they used to have with him, Julio Jones, Devontae Freeman, even Calvin Ridley for a while. Uh, I even remember when he used to have dudes like Roddy White. Um, it was some other dude, I can't think of his name right now. But they had Speedy Gonzalez, Tony Gonzalez on the team. But that's way back. But here's the now, which is Desmond Ridder. They drafted Bijan. I think I'm saying his name right. Is it Bijan Robinson out of Texas in the draft to kind of give Desmond some weight off of his shoulders in the backfield. A promising receiver in Drake London. And obviously, Kyle Pitts is there. So another one of those young teams like the Steelers that'll be, used to having a winning culture, but I believe it won't be that much longer for they're back to that. Like I said, maybe 3 or 4 years, and they'll get back to those winning ways. And the Falcons could beat those dirty birds again, Coming in at number 28, I know I am going to maybe receive a lot of slander for where I put this guy, but I just need y'all to, hear me out. Like I said, this is an opinionated list, so just, bear with me. I got San Francisco 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy. Now, although Brock Purdy has only lost one game in his professional career with the 49ers, and he played great. He actually did a tearing on my Seattle Seahawks, but I think we need to see more, man. Of course, he came, got off to a unheard of start with the 49ers, but you got to see more. Anybody can come off and give off a consistent spark and start, but it's about how long can you consistently do that. And, and I was looking at this, and I'm not even sure who really deserves this starting spot in San Francisco. Because you still got Trey Lance, who's coming back. Obviously, they let go of Jimmy G, who's now the starting quarterback for the Raiders. But, if you were to ask me who would I start, although I love Trey Lance's game, I would probably start Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy has great hands for ball control. He's an accurate passer, great leader. He's fearless, he's tough, confident, both in passing and running. Had passing stats of 67% of his passes were completed, 1,374 yards, 8 yards of completion, 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, was sacked 11 times, had a passer rating of 70 and a QBR of 66, only 9 games played. I think Brock Purdy is the better option between him and Trey Lance, but I think for the offensive scheme that the 49ers want to run, with Kyle Shanahan and the rest of those guys, I think it's better that Trey Lance runs it, because they have more of like a hyper-extensive balance offense, as to where they're not just passing or running all the time. They're kind of just whatever feels right going into the next snap is what they're going to do. Not saying that Brock Purdy can't run with the football. I just think we all know of what Trey Lance's scrambling ability is. You know what I mean? But that's why I have at 28. That's who I got. I think if he continues to play at the level that he played in at the towards the end of last season, I definitely think that I'll probably later on regret putting him this low on the list. But I think as of where he stands now, with just only 10, about 10 games played in the NFL, I think where I put him is not too shabby. Um, and then I say that, and then the next couple of quarterbacks I got are gonna have basically no experience, but like I said, just hear me out. So at 27, I have Indianapolis Colts quarterback and rookie Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson is dual threat quarterback. He's a great playmaker, an elite arm, and a powerful rusher. He reminds me of the likes of, Cam Newton, Josh Allen. The bigger quarterbacks in the league that are forced to be reckoned with when they are scrambling in open field. Didn't really have much of a winning career with the Florida Gators, but still actually put up tremendous numbers. Completed about 54% of his passes for about 2,550 yards, averaged 8 yards of completion, 17 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, had a player efficiency rating of 31, and his rushing stats go for 103 carries, 654 yards, 60 yards a carry, and 9 touchdowns. I definitely think the Colts have a promising future, man. You got Anthony Richardson now. You got an MVP caliber running back and Jonathan Taylor. Got Michael Pittman over there. I think as long as they continue to build their defense up, and keep a sustainable O line by Anthony Richardson, because with a great scrambling quarterback, you kind of got to give them a decent line, because we don't want him taking much hits, because that can cause injuries and durability issues moving forward. So he only played 12 games last season at Florida. Obviously, they weren't a very winning team, so weren't able to get more than 12 games. But I like his game a lot. Kind of like what they did, Indianapolis with this pick. Not much more I can say. I mean, I have to see how his game translates to the next level. That's with all these quarterbacks coming in this year. Yeah, I don't think it's much else I can say about him. Seems like a great guy, great character, team leader. So I'm just move on. 26, I got now Houston Texans starting quarterback out of Ohio State, C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud, also is a great leader, is a winner, great competitor, good character, has great size and build for a quarterback or the typical quarterback in the NFL. Great pocket passer. His game to me is kind of indescribable. I'm not sure what exactly the Texans are going to get out of him. I personally felt as if he would have fit. Now, I know the best player, in quarterback coming out of this draft was Bryce Young, but to me personally, I just felt Bryce Young fit better in Carolina. I'm sorry, not Carolina, in Houston, and CJ fit better in Carolina. So I felt like they should have, those two kind of could have swapped, not for who's better reasons, but better fit reasons. But I mean, you kind of got to take the best dude there for you and your franchise. But I mean, like I say, he's a great pocket passer. He doesn't fold when being, under pressure. Um, he still plays like himself when the pressure hits. Uh, Great defensive reader. It's gonna be very hard to throw a defensive scheme at him that he's not gonna be able to adjust to in NFL. High IQ guy. Um, he's very precise with his accuracy when throwing into the intermediate deep areas of the field. Um, had a passing stature this year of 66%, 3,688 yards, about 9.5 yards a completion, 41 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, a player efficiency rating of 178, and rushing stats went for 47 carries, 103 yards, 2 yards a carry on 13 games played. Yeah, I gotta see what he's gonna do in the NFL. I'm not one of the ones sold on CJ Stroud just yet. They say I'm crazy. I know he's good. I'm not gonna say he's trash. He's not, a bad quarterback. I just need to see how his game in particular translates to the NFL. And then another thing with that is he's in Houston, and we know that the Houston Texans pretty much have one of the worst, if not the worst, constructed rosters in the NFL. So he doesn't have the upper echelon, top tier, targets to throw to. Um, but we'll see what he does, man. Ain't much more as I can say about him. Coming in at 25, name I just mentioned a couple of seconds ago. Carolina quarterback Bryce Young. Um, Bryce Young was a Heisman Trophy uh, candidate last season with the Alabama Crimson Tide. He got adequate arm strength, consistent versatile thrower, great leader and competitor, elusive with the football, got great instincts as a field general, great IQ with reading defenses, and a full field awareness improviser. Um, had passing stats of about 65% of his passes were completed, 3,328 yards, 9 yards a carry, 32 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, a player efficiency rating of 163, and rushing stats of 49 carries, 185 yards, 4 yards a carry, and 4 touchdowns. Only 12 games played with Crimson Tide last season. Um, Actually, I believe he won the Heisman. He wasn't a candidate. He won the Heisman. Um, yeah, I think, man, I love Bryce Young. I love Bryce Young's game. He is personally my favorite quarterback come out of this year's draft. Um, I think Carolina got him a good one. You know, I think they give him the targets that he needs. Going forward, they could be a good team. They signed Miles Sanders this offseason, which is a great guy to put alongside Bryce Young in that backfield. Also can kind of relieve some stress off of Bryce Young with him being a rookie quarterback. And yeah, I just think Bryce Young is definitely NFL ready. Um, of course, his size kind of scares me, but I think with any athlete that has size concerns, all they need is just to dedicate themselves in the weight room, and their dietary plans need to be well focused on. But I think it's gonna be fine. It's just about how long can you take those hits, and that gives durability concerns, and how long his career how long can he play at a high level in his career? Um, so coming in at number 24, I have Tennessee Titans quarterback Ryan Tannehill. You know, one of the more bigger quarterbacks in the NFL. A lot of people have given Ryan Tannehill plenty of criticism over the years. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I think he's still a quality NFL quarterback. Um, what I say, he has degraded himself now to a quality backup. I'm not ready to say that just yet. I still say if you're the Tennessee Titans, give it, 2 to 3 more years. You got Robert Woods over there. Obviously, you got Derrick Henry over there. I still think y'all gonna be a good team. And Ryan Tannehill could be a sufficient part of that. I mean, he's a great thrower on the run. Actually, underrated scrambler. He can actually scramble pretty well. Um, got a very quick release on his throws and great mechanics as a quarterback. His accuracy has been a very somewhat inconsistent part of his game throughout the course of his career. I mean, last season he completed 65% of his passes for about 2,536 yards. So you can't really say that as it pertains to last season. But the Titans are a team who wants to win now, as you have one of the best, if not the best, running back in the league with Derrick Henry. Um, he got 8 yards of completion, 13 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Um, he was sacked 33 times. I think the Titans need to get him a better line to potentially give him more time in the pocket. Uh, and maybe some more targets to throw the ball to in the future. Um, but I still have the Titans being a playoff team coming in the next season. I think Ryan Tannehill is fine. I think there's no immediate need or want to move on at quarterback. Now, of course, they drafted Malik Willis. I would say just for let's not say reassurance, but just to try it out, I would say give Malik Willis more playing time this season, especially if you're not going to be winning. Although, like I said, I feel like they will, but in an event that they don't, give him some more playing time to see what he can bring to your offense and your offensive scheme with legit minutes. And that will kind of give you a game plan to what you want to do at the quarterback position moving forward. But I mean, he also had a passer rating of 95 and a QBR of 49. Only played 12 games. But that's kind of where I stand with Tennessee and Ryan Tannehill. Coming in at 23, I have Las Vegas Raiders quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, Jimmy G, suave, cool, calm and collected guy. Great size for a quarterback. He has pretty much intermediate accuracy when thrown over the middle. Quick, accurate passer and thrower. He prefers to throw to the left side of the field. Accurate passer when rolling out of the pocket. So I would say kind of work on developing accuracy all over the field, of course. because now you have Devontae Adams to your disposal. And Devontae's gonna be everywhere. I mean, they're gonna throw him at plenty spots all over the field. And obviously he's a great route runner. One of the best route runners in the league. So you got to give him the ball, and not necessarily quick with his throws. I would say he need to sharpen up on that. But if I think they let go of Derek Carr a little too early. If anything, it would have been smarter for them, in my mind, to keep Derek Carr and have Jimmy G be the backup. Because that gives you the reassurance of knowing, in an event that Derek Carr doesn't give us the production that we want or goes down with an injury, we got Jimmy Garoppolo to come in and, if not do the same, but to a certain degree, somewhat better. He completed about 67% of his passes. The 49ers had crazy quarterback issues last season. First with Trey going down, then with Jimmy going down. Got great production out of Brock Purdy before he went down against the Eagles. But, I mean, he had about 2,437 yards this season for about 8 yards completion, 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Was sacked 18 times with a passer rating of 103 and a QBR of 54. Like I said, only played in 11 games. But I think will be a great quality quarterback for the Raiders. He could potentially be a better pair for Devontae Adams as opposed to Derek Carr. I don't know. If you were to ask me who's my pick, I don't know. I like Derek Carr, man. I'm a fan of Derek Carr. I like Derek Carr. But I got faith in Jimmy G too. So like I said, we got to see what it does, man. We haven't seen anything of the pairing just yet. Obviously, we know that Devontae Adams wanted Aaron Rodgers, but you see where that went. So, yeah, that's this. Where I stand on Jimmy G and the Raiders. So next we have Tampa Bay quarterback Baker Mayfield. Now they have Baker. Baker Mayfield has been a true journeyman over the course of his career. I like his game ever since he was playing at a Heisman like level in Oklahoma. I think this can really be his vengeance season. A couple of years ago when he was in Cleveland, he had one of the, on paper, one of the best talented, skilled groups around him in NFL history, when it was himself, Kareem, and both Nick Chubb in the backfield. You had Odell Beckham Jr., you had Jarvis Landry, you had Donovan Peoples-Jones. And you also had David Njoku. And they, the Browns just weren't able to kind of pass that threshold of being what was expected of them. But now you're in that situation again. Now, with having Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Scotty Miller. But to me, I think, well, when you're coming behind, when you're the successor of the greatest quarterback of all time in Tom Brady, you kind of it's a lot of pressure, man. I mean, anybody, even myself. I know I'm coming behind Tom Brady. Of course, I got faith in myself as a quarterback and a player in this league, but I'm coming behind the greatest of all time. Um, but I mean, I believe Baker Mayfield can, embrace the challenge with full, integrity. Because, I mean, he's a, versatile ball driver with precise accuracy, prolific intermediate passer, and actually evades pressure at an excellent rate. And with the line constructed in Tampa Bay, I think Baker Mayfield has all the tools in Tampa Bay like he did in Cleveland a few years ago to be successful. I think if Baker Mayfield can play like Baker Mayfield, they will be a pretty successful winning team this season. Um, what I mean by that would be the flashes that we saw of him in a later season with the Rams. And that was probably the best we've seen of Baker Mayfield, arguably in his career. Um, but I mean, in 5 games played with the Rams this season, he had 64% of his passes completed, 850 yards, 7 yards of completion, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, was sacked 17 times, with a passer rating of 87 and a QBR of 25, with only sustaining 1 fumble. Um, I believe in Baker Mayfield. Um, great confident guy, team leader, and competitor. Um, so I think Tampa Bay will be a solid team this year. Like I said, if Baker Mayfield plays like Baker Mayfield. Um, Coming in at number 21, I have New Orleans Saints quarterback Derek Carr. Derek Carr is athletic, has one of the best arms in the league. Is a true gunslinger. Excellent game management skills. Great competitor, tough and instinctive. Obviously the experiment with him and Davante Adams wasn't what most expected, but you kind of have to compare him to who Davante Adams has also had in his career. Now, not to take anything away from Davante Adams, because we all know he's a top 3 receiver in the league, and in most eyes, number one. You had Aaron Rodgers throwing you the football, and like I said, Derek Carr is like one of my favorite guys in the league. But is he Aaron Rodgers? Of course not. So I definitely think that the Las Vegas Raiders bit the bullet on that duo a little too early. Because, I mean, the dude still went for 61% of his passes being completed, 3,522 yards, 7 yards per completion, 24 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, was sacked 27 times with a passer rating of 86 and a QBR 56, and was durable, and played 15 games. But he's been there quite a while. I believe about 8 or 9 years in Las Vegas. So maybe it was time to move on. Now you have Marcus Mariota at the helm, who I think for some time now, including myself, we all had debates on, coming out of that draft a few years ago, who was the better overall quarterback between him and James Winston. Um, and actually, I seen a ad somewhere showcasing a new show coming out on Netflix. I think it's called Quarterback. Uh, where it's going to be featuring Patrick Mahomes, Marcus Mariota, and Kirk Cousins. So excited to see what that's going to be about. So shout out to him for that. But anyway, I like this a lot. This is going to be very interesting to see what the New Orleans Saints are going to do this season. You got now a healthy Michael Thomas, a rising receiver in this league in Chris Olave. Um, and then Jared Cook is over there as well. So I mean, Derek got some targets, but last year he had Devontae and Darren Waller at his disposal. So we're gonna see what he can do. Like I said, now again he has another top tier receiver, and one of the, I guess a lot of people, including myself, are expecting Chris Olave to take that big step into his sophomore season in the NFL. So yeah, I'm excited to see what Derek Carr and the New Orleans Saints do this season. At number 20, we got Minnesota Vikings quarterback Captain Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins has amazing arm strength, underrated mobility, um, an aggressive and streaky passer when in rhythm. You know, when we look at sports, we have to take in consideration of all things considered into someone's success. I think a lot of times we just look at the success alone and not take a deeper dive into what is the blueprint behind the success, right? So, what I am equivalating to this in that regard is Justin Jefferson's amazing season. Like, Justin Jefferson is great, but if we just are going to look at his season for what it was for him, that's not taking a deeper dive into what also was a part of that success, being who was throwing him the football. The person that was throwing him the football? Kirk Cousins. Um, I think, that team can continue to be great. Now it's going to be an even bigger load on Justin Jefferson now because, Adam Thielen is now departed and went to Carolina. Also, now that I think about it, another target for Bryce Young now. But anyway, they drafted Jordan Addison this year. Out of LSU, I believe. So they got some pieces over there. And I believe that they're going to be another playoff team this year. As long as Kirk Cousins can continue. I mean, he's Kirk Cousins. From what I've seen on social media this year, has been a funny, hilarious guy. So I don't know if he has the attention and respect of the guys in the locker room with him, and his guys are riding for him and buying him 100%. This season he completed 56% of his passes for 4,547 yards, about 7 yards of completion, 29 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, and was actually sacked 46 times. So obviously when you see a high sack number, now don't get me wrong, all sacks are not at the fault of the offensive line. Of course, sometimes quarterbacks kind of bring their ways into and getting sacked. Like could be rolling out and then someone could be heading toward you. And so you kind of bring that sack onto yourself. And actually had, 31 carries rushing this season for 97 yards, 3 yards a carry, and 2 touchdowns and 2 fumbles. So obviously with Kirk Cousins' age, of course you're not going to be depending on him to be much of a scrambler. Kind of just step up in the pocket and deliver the ball to Jay Jettis. Yeah, I mean I like Kirk Cousins not just as a as a character, but as an overall quarterback for this organization, and I think that the Minnesota Vikings should hold on to him into being the team's franchise quarterback of the future for at least a couple more years, especially while you have Justin Jefferson in his prime. Now at number 19, I have New York Giants quarterback Daniel Jones. Now I have somewhat of a what can I say? I guess bias towards Daniel Jones because if you guys tuned in deep enough into the first episode of the podcast, you would know that as far as college is concerned, I support Duke University in all sports, both men and women. And as you all may know, Daniel Jones played for Duke in his collegiate career. But I mean, he's a smart guy with high IQ. Doesn't have top tier arm talent, but I think it's sufficient enough to get you the production that you need out of him. I think he needs more targets. I mean, Evan Ingram's there now. I'm sorry, Evan Ingram was with the Jaguars now. Excuse me. Now you have Darren Waller there, which I think is a great addition for them. Sterling Shepard is still there. Obviously, they got Saquon back there. So the Giants kind of have the roster put together to be successful in the NFL this season. I just think it kind of all depends on how Daniel Jones can rally his troops. I mean, he's a confident passer. He's not scared of the moment. A pretty good decision maker with great ability to drive the ball downfield. Great ball placement on his throws, and can throw the ball into very tight spaces with an exceptional rate. Had passing stats this year about 67% of his passes were completed, 3,205 yards, 7 yards completion, 15 touchdowns with 5 interceptions, with being sacked 44 times. I think the Giants need to work on that defense because their defense is pretty much set up to where their team in totality is kind of lenient more so on the offense. But if you're going to be lenient on your offense, you're going to need a defense that can sustain the ability to keep your offense on the field. And the Giants just don't have that as of now. But as far as this year's free agency is concerned, there's a lot of big name guys on defense that they can go out and get with the right amount of contracts negotiated with those players. So they have a chance to build a sufficient defense to give Daniel Jones and the New York Giants new constructed offense more time on the field. So I'm going to move on to number 18. And that is going to be Los Angeles Rams former Super Bowl quarterback Matthew Stafford. Obviously, as we know, a lot of people had questions about what Matthew Stafford was going to do for the Los Angeles Rams when they acquired him a couple of seasons ago. Matthew Stafford has one of the best arms in the league. He's a risky, flashy passer, but also accurate with, those type of passes as well. Clutch performer, when it's fourth quarter, a 2 minute drill, you can expect Matthew Stafford to be the same guy he's been all game. Um, he has very sufficient game time management skills and is a great decision maker. Kind of, underperformed with the Rams last season. Uh, he had his main guy, Cooper Kupp, with him, but they kind of both sustained some injury issues. Actually, I actually grew a little bit of a deeper love for the Rams because they drafted my guy Stetson Bennett this year in the NFL draft. I like that a lot for him. But I mean, Matthew Stafford still managed to complete 68% of his passes for 2,000, excuse me, 800. I said that wrong 2 times already. 2,087 yards, 7 yards, a completion, 10 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and 29 sacks. With a passer rating of 87 and a QBR of 50. I think that, this dude just won a Super Bowl 2 years ago. So, even though I personally feel that the Cincinnati Bengals should have won that. But, that's another conversation for another episode on the podcast. And I still believe that him and Cooper Kupp can continue to be a top 10, quarterback receiver duo in the league. They let go of OBJ, who's now in Baltimore. But I mean, they still got Van Jefferson there. Allen Robinson is there. I believe their tight end there now is Tyler Higbee, if I'm not mistaken. So they still got a good team there. Sean McVay is a great coach, one of the best in the league. And Matthew Stafford is a dog. He's a great competitor, team leader, and he's a winning guy. That's kind of tough to say with his recent struggles through the majority of his career before LA with Detroit Lions, but since he's been in Los Angeles, he's been a winner. So let's move on to 17, where I have New England Patriots quarterback Mac Jones. Mac Jones has kind of always been a guy who was pretty iffy to me because he does not have the typical NFL body. It's this picture that's out. You can probably still find it if you do a deep search for it, of him. It was the quarterback room of the Alabama Crimson Tide a few years ago with him, Tua Tagovailoa, and Jalen Hurts, all with I think it might have been a championship picture because they all had cigars and things of that nature, and hats and stuff. But he had his shirt off, and seeing a little chubby, for an NFL quarterback. So I think he kind of needs to slim down quite a bit. Also is another dude that's kind of a Tom Brady successor because he's also coming in behind, Tom Brady as well. But I mean, if you ask me, you get a dude from Alabama to be a successor to Tom Brady. That's not a bad blueprint for success. But I mean, he's an accurate short passer, great passer on the run, very high IQ and very composed in the pocket, with a great decision making and ball placement on those throws, and as he has great qualitative field vision. Mac Jones actually this year completed 65% of his passes for 2,997 yards with 7 yards of completion, 14 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Was sacked 34 times and had a passer rating of 85 and a QBR of 36. 14 games played this year with the Patriots, But um, and actually, to me, believe it or not, Mac Jones is actually a underrated scrambler. I think he's a scrambler who kind of would just be sufficient. And what I mean by that is, not going to expect you to get us first downs, but could potentially get you 6 yards on a rush that, he rolls out of the pocket and scrambles. Um, I'm not going to spend too much time here. I mean, it's the Patriots. We all know what the Patriots are about. They acquired Juju Smith-Schuster for him this offseason. Um, so I like that for them. And I mean, I don't necessarily expect them to be a playoff team again this season. But if they do somehow manage to squeeze in there, it's going to be, towards the bottom of the AFC. Coming in at number 16, a guy who had a stellar, surprising season last season, Detroit Lions quarterback Jared Goff. Jared Goff actually, we'll see. Like I said, I'm a Seahawks fan, and there was the last game of the season where the Lions played the Green Bay Packers, and we were still trying to squeeze in for a playoff spot, and the Lions had to either beat the Packers or tie with them to give us a playoff spot, and they actually beat them by 3, I believe. So thank you, Detroit, for that, even though we didn't do anything with the playoff spot, but we still got it. But yeah, I mean, Jared Goff has elite arm strength, clear release on his throws with velocity and accuracy. Great footwork, actually, one of the best footwork in the league for a quarterback. Has great pocket mobility with high IQ when being blitzed. And actually escaped the pocket at a very exceptional rate. He had a surprising season last season and brought the Detroit Lions farther than most expected them to go. He completed about 65% of his passes for 4,438 yards, which is surprising for someone like Jared Goff. But I mean, when the speculation was out between who was the better guy between him and Carson Wentz, my pick was always Jared Goff. Even though you take away from what Jared has done this season, both of them have kind of been inconsistent and not played up to the potential that most had them at, coming into the NFL. But I mean, he also had 8 yards of completion this season with 29 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, and was sacked 23 times with a passer rating of 99 and a QBR of 61, and played actually 17 of the 18 games for the Lions this season. Now, I think that Detroit can be a force to be reckoned with for years to come. They got a promising dude with Jameson Williams, who I like his game a lot. TJ Hockenson is there. So I think, they can actually be a pretty... And I like the coach, Dan Campbell. Dude that's very high energy with his coaching technique and with his players. And I mean, obviously knows a former player, and he gives the energy as if he wants to go out there and play alongside his guys. So I like the Detroit Lions and what they have the capability to do, going forward into the future. Now here's where things get a little interesting as we now reach the top 15 of this, ranking the 32 NFL starting quarterbacks of 2023. And at number 15, I have Chicago Bears quarterback Justin Fields. Now, you gotta get Justin Fields a better line. I mean, the amount of times that Justin was sacked last season was, I mean, inexcusable. I mean, and for the type of player that he is, who is somewhat dependent on his legs, you can't afford him to be taking but so many hits. And I mean, if you ask me, coming out of the 2021 draft class, aside from Trevor Lawrence, I had, Justin Fields as the best quarterback in that draft. Um, and now up until this point, you can, argue who's better or who you would rather have between him and Trevor Lawrence. But I mean, the dude has a stellar skill set and great mechanics to be a great football quarterback in the NFL. The accurate passer with sufficient arm strength, dual threat quarterback, which you don't find many guys who specialize in that, nowadays. Um, he aggressively pushes the ball downfield. He's an exceptional thrower when throwing the ball into tight windows, extremely athletic and mobile, a dynamic open field runner, and dangerous, when passing while scrambling. Um, when you have a guy, I think if they get him a line that can sustain him to probably obtaining only probably about, let's say, 15 to 20 sacks going forward in his seasons, you know, in the future, they're going to be a great team because when you have a guy who can basically run out of the pocket and you are in shambles as a defender as to where I don't know whether I should go tackle this guy or step back, then he's going to be dangerous in throwing the ball. That can be scary. And I mean, you can run with the best of them, with other scrambling quarterbacks in the league like a Trey Lance, a Lamar Jackson, a Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, um, Deshaun Watson, guys of that nature. Justin Fields is going to be great, man. I am really excited to where he can take the Chicago Bears, um, moving forward. I mean, last season he had a stat line of 61% of his passes being completed, 2,242 yards, 7 yards of completion, 17 touchdowns, threw 11 interceptions. So he kind of has to clean up on his consistency and efficiency with his throws. But the dude was sacked 55 times, excuse me. Think about that. You took 55 hits. Actually, well, more than 55. But 55 of those hits were accounted for as sacks. That is extremely beyond unacceptable. And if you are the Chicago Bears, you need to do something about that immediately. I mean, Lord, his rushing stats. I mean, 160 yards. I'm sorry, 160 carries for 1,143 yards. That is unbelievable. I believe he had some type of record where he was up there with the likes of Michael Vick, which is, in most eyes, the greatest scrambling quarterback of all time. Also averaging 7 yards a carry with 8 touchdowns, but did fumble the ball 9 times. So that shows concerns of ball control. But I mean, he definitely has the hands to do that at a high rate. You just got to work on it, obviously in practice. And actually played 15 games for the Bears this season. Only missing that's like 3 games. So I think going forward, you build around him the right way with the right pieces, and just like I said about teams like the Steelers, Patriots, you can be a contending team in the next 3 to 4 seasons. At number 14, I have, and this one may turn some heads, but I have Cleveland Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson. I mean, not much to say. I think Deshaun Watson wasn't able to be the Deshaun Watson that we all know and was only a shell of himself because of only being able to play 6 games this season due to the domestic violence and the rape and sexual assault allegations that he faced with the numerous amount of women that came out and spoke out against him. But I think now that we get a full season of Deshaun Watson, that is going to be is like his revenge tour. I think he's definitely gonna be out for vengeance this season, and we're going to get the Deshaun Watson that we all knew and loved from the Houston Texans days. I mean, the dude's super efficient. Controls the game at his own pace. Extremely athletic. Can escape the pocket at a high rate. Gets in a rhythm off of relying on pre-game reads from the defense, and excels best in the cover 2 and cover 3 coverages on defense. I mean, he's also a very confident, clutch, big-time performer in big moments. I mean, you've seen the plays these guys have made with the Houston Texans a couple of years ago when it was just, him and DeAndre Hopkins. Because he never really had a great constructed roster around him. He kind of just had the defense to his advantage to where he could showcase his quarterbacking abilities more on offense because of a great defense that he had on the other side of the ball for him. I mean, I really like Deshaun Watson's game, man. I think with a full season, like I said, with Deshaun Watson now, is going to be scary and can definitely, prove, like he's already proven it to me. I don't even have to see any more to believe in it. That's why I have him at 14. But to the rest of you who doesn't believe he's worthy of a top 15 quarterback spot, I think with the full season that he's going to have this season, he's going to bring back a lot of people to who Deshaun Watson, truly is. Because, I mean, even only 6 games played this season, he still completed about 58% of his passes for 1,102 yards, 6 yards to carry, 7 touchdowns, threw 5 interceptions, and was only sacked 20 times with a pass rating of 79 and a QBR of 38. And, well, rushing-wise, he had 36 carries for 175 yards with 5 yards to carry and a touchdown and fumble apiece. But this was just what you can only do in 6 games. Kareem Hunt's still there. Nick Chubb's still there. Austin Hooper, David Njoku's still there. Obviously, we know that Jarvis Landry is now on the free agency market. I'm not sure if they're going to bring him back. So I don't know what targets. I mean, he's going to have Donovan Peoples-Jones there. But I believe that's more of like a wide receiver 2-3. So you still got to go out there and get that receiver for him again. But, looking at it, DeAndre Hopkins is also looking for a new home as well. So if I am Cleveland, I am trying to get that duo back in correlation with each other. Being that I now get a full season of Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins needs a new home, and I am in desperate need of a receiver for him. So, there was a TikTok that came out of DeAndre Hopkins reacting to certain teams that he could have possible destinations to. Unfortunately, the Browns were not one of those teams. But I think it's still a possibility. I'm sure that both Deshaun and DeAndre both want it. So it's just all on the front office and guys that do it legally to get that orchestrated and done. Coming in at number 13, my personal favorite quarterback in the NFL, Denver Broncos quarterback, Mr. Danger, Russ Wilson. Obviously, everyone was clowning Russ for his Broncos country. Let's ride slogan last season because they weren't doing much of riding. They couldn't giddy up or anything like that. But I mean they got a great orchestrated team. I just think we didn't give Russ enough time. I still believe in Russ because of what he did for my franchise since I became a fan in Seattle. Because we all know what Russ is capable of, and I definitely think that Russ can most certainly work his way back into being in that MVP conversation and being a top 10 quarterback in this league. Because, I mean, you got Jerry Jeudy there, you got Cortland Sutton. You got KJ Hamler, Marquez Callaway, Marvin Mims. I mean, you got targets. You definitely need to go out there and get Russ a tight end. If I were them, I would go ahead and target guys like, maybe a Jared Cook. Because this tight end class, free agency class, isn't that, well orchestrated and deep to really go out and sign guys. But I mean, you can get him another big target to throw to. And get him a sufficient running back alongside him to kind of take some of the pressure away from him. Because we have seen moments where Rush gets a big load and it kind of overwhelms him. So to kind of minimize the chances of that, get him a running back. But Russ has been a consistent passer his whole career. I mean, he's consistent, efficient, durable, will play, and will play through injury. He's not, my man Ray's know what as it pertains to him. Upper echelon deep ball thrower and passer. Dangerous threat with both his arms and his legs. I mean, Russ can scramble with the best of them and has one of the best gunslinging, arms in the league. And I mean, even with his, smaller size and build compared to most quarterbacks in the NFL, he's still a very fearless and relentless scrambler. I mean, he's a team leader. He got the attention of the guys in his locker room. Even with the tough season that he had, his guys still advocated and co-signed for his ability to be a great quarterback in his league still. And I believe that the Broncos will be better this season. And like I said, I still believe in Russ, man. If I, meet, hearing this from me, do not give up on Russ just yet. I know y'all might say there's some old Seahawks bias because he used to be our quarterback, yada, yada, yada. But, no, seriously, I do still have belief in Russ, and you all should as well. Cause, I mean, he still completed 50% of his passes this season for 3,524 yards. And, to say you had an underperformance season and still throw for 3,500 yards is kind of a lackluster opinionative statement. Still averaged 7 yards of completion, 16 touchdowns, still 11 interceptions. So that's kind of unlike Rush to have that touchdown to interception ratio being where it is. But was also sacked 55 times. So, like I said, the guys with the high, sack numbers, and now, of course, Russ does do a lot of scrambling in the pocket, so that could have been a big factor into that amount of sacks. But you got to get him a better line as well if you're the Denver Broncos. Had a passer rating of 84, QBR of 37. Rushing stats went for 55 carries for 277 yards, about 5 yards a carry, 3 touchdowns and 2 fumbles. and play 15 games for Denver this season. Um, and actually, there are some quality dudes at that running back spot that could benefit the Denver Broncos. I mean, Leonard Fournette's still out there. Zeke is still out there waiting for a team to come pick him up. Dalvin Cook, Kareem Hunt, Mark Ingram, Kenyon Drake, David Johnson, James Robinson, Marlon Mack, Justin Jackson. So there are plenty of options for the Denver Broncos to go out and get a running back for, as a backfield companion alongside Russell Wilson. Um, so yeah, a little bit of a cleaning up that the Broncos need to do, but I think they will actually have to make the playoffs this season. So look out for Broncos country. Let's ride Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos coming into this season. Now at number 12, I have Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. Man, this is such a bittersweet situation that we are covering with Miami. Tua was admitted by most doctoral suggestions that he should retire from football after numerous head and concussion injuries. But obviously with his undeniable love for the game of football, he's willing to die out there to play the game that he loves, and that just shows how much of a great kid that he is, and that you really have a nice character and humble guy if you're the Miami Dolphins with the solidified franchise quarterback going forward. And I believe if he just can continue to stay healthy, the Miami Dolphins can continue to be a force to be reckoned with. Tyreek Hill is now actually in some legal trouble after getting into an assault incident in Miami recently in the past few days or so. So who knows what's to come of that situation. But back to Tua. Tua can, thread the needle with, his passes. Very high IQ guy. Supreme footwork. One of the best footwork in the league for a quarterback. An extreme great pocket passer with elusiveness. He played about 13 games last season, completing about 65% of his passes for 3,548 yards, 9 yards, a completion, 25 touchdowns with 8 interceptions, and was sacked 21 times. For Mike McDaniel, I just think, they got a great roster. Tua, you got Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Mike G, who's there. Tua also maintained a passer rating of 105 and a QBR of 69. But you have to get, and with as far as Tua is concerned, you got to get him a sufficient line, because with those with this past history of having concussions, you want him taking the least amount of hits as possible. And after we saw what happened with the Damar Hamlin situation, you want to protect your players as best as possible. Because the wrong hit and your career can be over. And Tua is basically beating around that bush and kind of skating into that territory. So if I am the Miami Dolphins, my main concern this offseason is to get a better line for Tua. Coming in at number 11, I have a guy who was an MVP candidate for certain parts of the season last year. Seattle Seahawks quarterback, my guy, my quarterback, Geno Smith. I'm not gonna lie, man. When we lost Russ, I was very skeptical with what Geno Smith could bring to my team at the quarterback position. But with his play this season, he definitely, changed my perspective on him and proved me wrong in many ways. And I do like where my team is headed still, and still motivated to be a fan of the team moving forward. So, uh, you know, Geno Smith is a very hyper accurate passer who excels, at with his intermediate throws and short throws, when in rhythm. Quick witted speed with the release of his passes. And he benefits wide receivers who, kind of depend on their RAC numbers, receiving at the catch. Super playmaking ability and ball control is an elusive athletic scrambler and patient pocket presence. Excellent downfield vision and, one of the more bigger quarterbacks in our game today. I think, not being biased whatsoever, we are going to be a force to reckon with now. We have Geno at, under center. Kenneth Walker is, the dude's a dog, man. He's great. Obviously, DK, Tyler Lockett. We picked up a great new target for Geno and JSN, Jackson Smith, Naihaba. If I'm saying his last name right, but JSN, y'all know him. Number 11 now for us. Played at Ohio State with the Buckeyes last year with C.J. Stroud. Kind of was his number one guy. Well, you can debate that between him and Marvin Harrison Jr. But 1A, 1A, or 1 and 2, whatever. Geno completed 70% of his passes this season for 4,282 yards, 8 yards of completion, 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, was sacked 46 times. So definitely need to also sharpen up on our offensive line as well to, keep him protected. I was kind of, upset with the fact that we let Gabe Jackson, our guard, go this offseason because we do not have a great O-line. Our O-line is kind of towards the bottom half of the league. So definitely need to clean up in that area and get a better line for Geno. But everyone can't have a crazy great line. There's going to be some that are going to be better than others, and everybody can't get everyone. So you're going to have some sacrifices somewhere, to benefit you in other areas. Geno also had a passer rating of 101 and a QBR of 61. Definitely, like I said, it was played at an MVP caliber all season long, pretty much, more particularly into that middle part of the season. Like I said, many were skeptical of what he was going to do being Russell Wilson's successor, but you have to look at it. There's different type of successes when it comes to quarterbacks. You have the dudes who get some mentorship, some time under that quarterback, and then end up being a successor, or you have the guys who don't get any type of experience or leadership from that guy at all and are just immediately thrown into the fire. Geno has been under Russ for about 4 seasons, now. So he was seeing the work ethic that would be needed to be successful for us in the 12s, to give us that Russell Wilson like feel. And I do believe that we still have our quarterback for the future, our franchise QB. And I fully rock and are behind Geno 100%. But I mean, he's also a great rusher and a great scrambler, which is something we also got from Russell Wilson over the years. With 68 carries, 366 yards, 5 yards a carry, only one touchdown, and about 3 fumbles. But I mean, he played basically every game for us this season. So I mean, that makes him also durable. I think we just have to work on his deep ball, and slightly better ball placement on his throws, because I think he kind of more so leads his receiver to the ball as opposed to guys like, the Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Staffords, and Tom Brady's of the world that are going to place that ball in your chest, 9 times out of 10 on every pass. So, kind of need to get him to develop that trait to a certain degree. But I believe we're going to be fine, and we're going to make the playoffs again this season. And if Geno does decline from the season that he had, because I mean, it's kind of hard to top the season that he had, although it's definitely possible, But if he does, degrade and fall back a little bit, I don't think it's going to be to the point where it hurt us that bad. Yeah, that's all I have to say about Geno and my Seahawks. I ain't gonna ramble about them for too long. But now we have reached the top 10 of the list. Now there is a guy here who I'm pretty sure maybe many of you would not put in your top 10. I don't know if you noticed who that guy has been yet, but I'm going to get to him very soon because he is in my top 10, and I will also get into my reasoning as to why, because I'm going to stand behind all my picks, But at number 10, I have Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence caught the eye of many people this season because of how successful the Jacksonville Jaguars were. He led the Jags this season to a 9-8 record in the and also the number one seed, or the number one team in the AFC South, in the division that has the Titans and Colts in it as well. I mean, great size for a quarterback. I mean, I think behind Josh Allen, he's probably the biggest. Well, I mean, I know from a height perspective, he's the tallest quarterback in the league, but from like an overall size and ability, probably the biggest quarterback behind Josh Allen. I mean, the dude's a winner, great competitor and leader. Coming from Clemson. I mean, he's been winning since high school. He was a winner, state champion in high school, was able to win a Super Bowl. I mean, I'm sorry, not a Super Bowl, a college football national championship with the Clemson Tigers. And maybe in about 7 to 10 years or so can get one of those for Jacksonville. I mean, he has a very unique skill set at his size. Accurate passer with an extremely powerful arm. Very athletic and extremely dangerous when given time in the pocket. He has a very elite pocket presence and a precise throw with field vision. But actually, is a very underrated accelerator. Athlete, and also has an underrated mobility that he possesses. But also has high IQ. Very hardworking and humble. This season he actually completed about 60% of his passes, about 4,113 yards, 7 yards of completion, 25 touchdowns, only threw 8 picks, was only sacked 27 times, had a passer rating of 95 and a QBR of 55, and had rushing stats of 62 carries, 291 yards, 5 yards a carry, 5 touchdowns, and 5 fumbles, and playing just about every game with 17 games played last season for the Jaguars. Um, and I believe the Jaguars can actually be better than they were um, last season, because you got Travis Etienne's over there. You got now a full season of Calvin Ridley. Evan Ingram is there. So now you have the pieces to actually make a contending run this year for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and now you got Trevor Lawrence at the helm, leading the charge. So I think, obviously Trevor could have been a little bit higher on this list, but I think where I got him at is kind of perfect because like I said with other quarterbacks before, yeah, you can be impressive for a certain amount of time, but it's also about how long can you play at that level. And I still need to see a little bit more from Trevor Lawrence and see if he can kind of replicate or even, elevate the season that he just had. Now I got someone here at number 9 who is going to be a big question mark for a lot of you, but I'm going to get into why I have him where I have him. Number 9 is the Arizona Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray. Now we all know Kyler Murray kind of had a down season last year with the Arizona Cardinals. You have DeAndre Hopkins and Marquise Hollywood Brown to your disposal. And also, they actually have a great third wide receiver, Andy Isabella, who's not bad at all. Only managed to win about 4 games last season. But I still believe in Kyler Murray. Definitely the smallest quarterback in the NFL. DeAndre Hopkins is now gone, which makes his number 1 target now officially Marquise Hollywood Brown. But it was a tough blow to lose Zach Ertz. But I do think the Cardinals will be better this season. Cliff Kingsbury is now gone. You got a new coach. So I believe it's only going to be a step in the right direction for the Arizona Cardinals. Like I said, Kyler is no scrub. Marquise Hollywood Brown is still there. You get a full, now healthy Zach Ertz. You got James Conner in the backfield with Kyler Murray. And also, a lot of people don't give this guy enough credit, but Rondale Moore is actually a quality receiver. So I do think, of course, we're talking about the loss of DeAndre Hopkins. We're talking about the loss of a top 5 receiver in the NFL. But I do think you still have a decent 1-2 punch with Marquise Hollywood Brown and Rondale Moore. Like I said, you get now a healthy Zach Ertz. So I think that nothing but upside from now on with the Arizona Cardinals. I do think there are some emotional and verbal issues between Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals, and from a front office and individual standpoint, we just don't know where Kyler Murray's head is at right now. I do think that dude loves football. Obviously, he chose football over baseball and could have went that route because he was drafted by the Oakland Athletics. But even with his size, he's still a very versatile thrower, patient pocket passer, very, very athletic at his size, undersized, but will put his body on the line to get first downs, and is a very fearless and aggressive runner, even with his size. Actually has a very elite arm strength. We all saw that crazy play between him and DeAndre Hopkins where, he threw a Hail Mary to DeAndre and he caught it over like two or three Buffalo Bills defenders. So we all know what Kyler Murray is capable of. We just gotta, see him go out there and do it. Obviously, extremely mobile and with a very high IQ with escaping the pocket, and it's very very dangerous. With the likes of like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen winning the open field. Um, Still even with the season, being as horrific and dramatic as it was, the dude still completed 67% of his passes for 2,368 yards, 6 yards of completion, 14 touchdowns, threw about 7 picks, and was sacked 25 times with a passer rating of 87, QBR 51, and actually had rushing stats of 67 carries, about 418 yards, 3 touchdowns, 6 yards of carry, and 6 fumbles. So that would just mean clean up on your ball control. But I still believe in Kyler Murray, man. Just like I said earlier with Deshaun Watson, you surround them with the right guys and the right coaching, play calling and schemes, and they can be great quarterbacks in this league. Like I said, now we kind of are having some morality and leadership, concerns with Kyler Murray with some recent quotes that he, statements that he's made between not only him but his camp and family as well. But I mean, we have seen in today's game when dudes are not necessarily great professionals, but still are able to showcase great talent. The great talent kind of overshadows the character of the, player. So I think as long as he goes out there and be Kyler Murray on the field, what he, says and does off the field won't necessarily affect him. So now we're coming into number 8, where I have Los Angeles Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert Herb, man, hasn't really caught my eye. I've never been much of a fan. Not saying he's bad, he wouldn't be number 8 on my list if he was a scrub, but I just don't really, know what to expect out of Justin Herbert. But I mean, the dude has superb arm strength. He's a great thrower on the run. Doesn't blink when, thrown under pressure. Very athletic and, has one of the better size and builds of quarterbacks in the NFL. This season, he passed for about 68 for completion percentage, 4,738 yards, 7 yards per completion, 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and was sacked 38 times with a passer rating of 93 and a QBR of 58, with also rushing stats of 54 carries, 147 yards, 3 yards a carry. And played basically every game for the Chargers last season. The Chargers are one of those teams that are going to be still able to continue to compete and contend for a title for a very long time. You got Justin Herbert. You got one of the best receivers in the league, and Keenan Allen. You got Mike Williams, who's there. You now get a full, healthy season with him, which can also elevate the play of Justin Herbert. They made a big signing this offseason and signing Gerald Everett, which gives Justin Herbert another target. So I think that they can still, compete. Last year they had a record of 10-7. So I think now maybe this year they can elevate into more of like a 12, 13 win game season. And then he also has a great running mate with him and with Austin Eckler in the backfield with him. So the Chargers gonna be fine. I see them only getting better, not worse. Because I mean, you got someone in Justin Herbert who's only 25, so has about 3 more years before he actually reaches his prime. Um, or should I say the end of his prime? But I think he's only gonna get better, and that just only means that the Chargers are going to get better. Um, Now coming in at number 7, I have newly acquired quarterback by the New York Jets. That bad man, Mr. Aaron Rodgers, A-Rod, you know, AR-12, whatever you want to call him, I mean, I don't got to spend much time here. We all know who Aaron Rodgers is. Um, Top 10, in some people's eyes, top 5 greatest quarterback of all time. Um, I mean, A-Rod is just A-Rod. Like, I mean, it's not nothing I'm gonna sit here and tell you guys that you don't already know about A-Rod. Um, he's has extreme high precise accuracy, high IQ, and intelligence as a NFL quarterback. Tough, both mentally and physically. You're not gonna really say anything that's gonna throw Aaron Rodgers off his game. The dude was saying for many years now that he owns the Chicago Bears, and was doing the championship belt celebration in Chicago for many games. Just extreme swagger about him. You just love everything about A-Rod inside and out. Um, Obviously, we know that he's caught a lot of slander over the years because of him only being able to sustain one championship. Um, but I mean, y'all saw what A-Rod was able to do last season with only dudes like Allen Lazard, Christian Watson, and Randall Cobb. Really, if you ask me, the best target that he had last year is Robert Tonyan. And I believe he was dealing with some injury issues as well. The thing that deprived me from putting Aaron Rodgers a little bit higher on this list is also, one, because he's on a new team, we haven't seen what he's going to be able to do yet. And then again, I believe that there may be more targets acquired for Aaron Rodgers. I mean, of course, the Jets acquired dudes that he wanted, like Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb. But I mean, DeAndre is still out there. And, so Dalvin Cook came out with a statement saying that, if him and DeAndre were to end up on the same roster, that would be epic for the NFL. And he's right. And I feel like that could be Green Bay. Of course, that would be a very scary elite 3-headed monster. But I think with the cap that the Jets currently possess, they'll have such a young group that's obviously saving you a lot of money. And it is not just a young group of guys who need to develop, but dudes that are talented right now. Mekhi Becton, Quentin Williams, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall. They just acquired Elijah Moore. So, now you got Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb. Now you got Aaron Rodgers in the backfield. So if you go out there and get both Dalvin and DeAndre, that gives you a veteran, top tier player in both the running back and wide receiver positions to also, help with the development of your younger guys at those positions. Like I said, the dude's a winner. He's has elite ball placement on his throws. Sufficient, tough, underrated scrambler. A lot of people don't appreciate how well of a scrambler Aaron Rodgers actually is. Aaron Rodgers actually run with the ball. He's not maybe the fastest, but can maybe get you 4 to 5 yards on a specific down. But last year he completed about 65% of his passes, threw for 3,695 yards, 7 yards of completion, 26 touchdowns, threw 12 interceptions, which is kind of un Aaron Rodgers like. You kind of expect him to be around the 6-8 range. But was only sacked 32 times. Passer rating of 91, QBR of 39, which is kind of low for Aaron Rodgers. But I believe this year, now that he's clearly all smiles in New York and is now beyond motivated to play at his highest level possible, will have a greater season than he did last year, and could definitely solidify himself as a top 5 lock quarterback in the league. Now we move to number 6. Now, actually, I'm not gonna lie, 7 and 6 kind of gave me some time to really think about who I want to put where, because I was having a tough time whether I wanted to go Dak, then Aaron, then Dak. But well, saying this now, number 6 is Dak Prescott for me from Dallas Cowboys. My main reason for putting Dak over Aaron Rodgers was because we've seen Dak with the same, core of guys, CD, Michael Gallup, Dalton Schultz, and others. So we know what he's able to do with that group. We have not seen anything, really no more than just training camp film of what Aaron Rodgers can do with his group. That's why I just put him at 7, because, at the end of the day, he's still Aaron Rodgers. And then that core that he has around him is a very young core, and it's hard sometimes to get those young guys to elevate themselves to play to the level of like Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. But yeah, we got Dak, man, number 6, Dallas Cowboys. No Zeke. Zeke is gone. And I'm sure he's gonna find a home elsewhere very, very soon. But now what that also does is put a bigger load on the passing game for the Dallas Cowboys, which, they've kind of always been a more so team that relied on the passing game. But this just kind of solidifies that even more. Don't get me wrong, Tony Pollard is not no scrub. And will definitely be a decent, mid-tier running back for the Cowboys this season. But we all know when healthy, Dak is a force to be reckoned with in this league. Obviously loves the city of Dallas, loves the game of football in general. We saw how deeply saddened he was when he, sustained that injury a couple of years ago in the playoffs. I believe that was against the Giants, if I'm not mistaken. Crying on his, when being carting out of the off the field. So we're gonna see what he can do now this year with that bigger load to create offense for the Dallas Cowboys. He throws the ball with precise accuracy, sufficient mobility, great decision maker, great team leader and competitor. Has a very superb work ethic and love for the game. This year he completed about 56% of his passes for about 2,860 yards, 7 yards of completion, 23 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. Kind of clean up on that a little bit, But we haven't known Dak to be a super consistent thrower, so definitely would need him to improve on his consistency and efficiency with his throws. Was sacked about 20 times, so that kind of lets us know that he has a decent line in front of him. A passer rating of 91 and QBR 58. With rushing stats that went for 45 carries, 182 yards, 4 yards a carry, with only a touchdown and 2 fumbles and played about 12 games. I still think the Cowboys are gonna be fine. Everyone's big concern with Dak, and I can't argue, is his play in the playoffs. Obviously, we know that at certain times in the playoffs, Dak is not Dak. He's just more so a shell of himself. And we need that MVP caliber play of Dak to not only be showcased in the regular season, but the postseason as well, because he does have a team around him to be a legit Super Bowl contender, both on offense and defense. I'm interested to see what the play calling is going to look like this season for the Dallas Cowboys now that Mike McCarthy is not only the head coach, but also is going to be calling plays now, which gives him pretty much co-offensive coordinator role. So I think as long as Dak, can prove that he can be Dak Prescott in the regular season and, bring that side of him to the postseason as well and be a consistent playoff performer, the Dallas Cowboys should be fine, and the loss of Zeke should not hurt them that poorly. Now we've reached the top five. Pretty much here, I feel like with the top five, it can be orchestrated and plotted out as best as you would like, because it, in certain cases can be interchangeable 1 through 5. But this is my five. So coming in at number 5, I have former MVP Baltimore Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. Lamar finally got his bag that he was desperately awaiting. They signed Zay Flowers for him. I'm sorry, not signed. Drafted Zay Flowers for him, getting him an extra target. Lamar's thing was, we always never questioned Lamar's talent and ability, but the Ravens have just never given him really the pieces and the targets to make them better as a team, and not only that, but elevate him as a quarterback. But now you got Zay Flowers. You signed Odell Beckham Jr. You also have Rashad Bateman, who is an up and coming receiver in the league, and can't forget about Mark Andrews, top 5 tight end in the league. So now they kind of have the offense around Lamar Jackson for him to be as successful as probably he's been in the NFL. Obviously, we don't know what we're going to get out of Odell just yet. If we can get the Odell that we saw with the Rams, then of course, then we got a good Ravens team that we can definitely see make a deep run in the playoffs this season. But as it pertains to Lamar, you know what Lamar Jackson can do. I mean, obviously, there's no debate about him being the, best mobile, shifty, crafty, speedy scrambler, and runner in the league. Nobody tops him with that. His scrambling ability is actually one of the best all time in the NFL. I actually have to say that. That's like Michael Vick-esque, type of running that he possesses, and is very dangerous in the open field. I mean, Lamar can legit get you touchdowns, not just deep first downs or semi first downs. I'm talking like legit touchdowns when running in the open field. Lamar possesses great confidence and resiliency, sufficient field vision. Like I said, very shifty, slippery. Quick, fast-paced runner. Like I said, scrambling ability is 101 out of this world. Amazing mobility, pocket pressure. I'm sorry, not pressure. Presence. Elite ball placement on his throws. Very, high level open field elusiveness, and can extend plays at a very high rate. And he's actually extremely durable. I'm happy for him, man. He got his bag. Got a decent team around him to be successful now. And actually, at the running back spot, him and J.K. Dobbins can be a force to be reckoned with as far as the run game is concerned for the Baltimore Ravens. Um, this season, Lamar had a stat line of 2,242 yards passing, with completing about 62% of his passes, 7 yards of completion, 17 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, was sacked 26 times with a passer rating of 91 and a QBR of 59. And obviously, rushing is going to do his thing with 112 carries, 764 yards, 7 yards a carry with 3 touchdowns and 4 fumbles. Played about 12 games this season because I think he sustained an injury. I don't think it was like a leg injury. But got to keep him protected because, like I said, the dudes that are the great scramblers, the more mobile guys, you got to keep them protected because you want that mobility to be as durable and as long term as possible for not just your player, but your franchise as well. Because we all know Lamar is dependent on his legs, and you take his mobility and scrambling ability away from him, he's not the same player. Definitely needs to show the world what he can do throwing the football. I believe in his throwing ability. To a lot of people, it's very inconsistent and iffy. But I believe he can throw with, the top 15 best in the league. But if you ask me, saying that's the upper half of the league, which is, the best of the best. No, he's no Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen in that regard. But he is obviously, like I said, the best scrambler in the NFL. And I mean, he's a former MVP. You know what I mean? Let's not forget that the dude won MVP with that not of a great team around him. If he were to win MVP this year, that would make more sense for the team he has around him now. But that team that he had around him when he won MVP, at least on paper, was not in comparison to the team that he has now. All right, now coming in at number 4, I have another one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league, probably my second favorite behind Russell Wilson. Joe Shiesty, man. Joe Shiesty, Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow. Man, I love Joe Shiesty, man. I mean, just stone cold blooded killer. I mean, never gonna forget the video of him legs crossed in the LSU locker room with his snapback and cigar in hand. Was this close, I mean, a couple of plays away from being a Super Bowl champion in his second season, played at an MVP-like level in his second season. Definitely is going to be a force to reckon with for a very long time in this league. And, I mean, got the team behind him. Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. No more C.J. Uzomah. I don't know what their plans are now at tight end, but I think it is a couple like I named, previously in the episode that they can go out and get. But the tight end talent in general in the NFL is kind of tight and, not very, very deep. So you kind of just have to sacrifice and roll with the punches with that particular position. But I mean, dart like precise accuracy with his throws, big playmaker, extremely mobile, very efficient with his throws, tough guy, very tough, can take a lot of hits and get up immediately. Very confident, with the talents to match. Joe Burrow is kind of like Aaron Rodgers in a sense where I can say this, this and that, and come out on the field and prove that I can also do this, and that. And actually has underrated scrambling ability, because he's very athletic and, has a very moderate release time on his throws. Joe Burrow is just great, man. I love watching Joe Burrow. Love the guy, inside and out. Great character and definitely what you want out of your franchise quarterback with his professionalism as well. Um, this season, Joe Burrow passed for 4,475 yards. 68% of his passes were completed. 7 yards in a completion attempt. Um, 35 touchdowns. 12 interceptions. 41 sacks. To be sacked that much and play at such a high level still is just what makes Joe Burrow even greater. Um, which is actually kind of surprising that he got sacked that much. I'm kind of surprised at that number because um, the Bengals actually have one of the best O lines in the league, and also is what got him that deep playoff run in his second season, only in the NFL, reaching the Super Bowl, but unfortunately falling to the Matthew Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams. Um, but I mean, Joe Burrow can be a force you reckon with for years to come. I mean, I think this dude is going to have a lengthy 15-20 career, you know, playing at this level. Um, he is Cincinnati Bengals. Him and Jamar Chase are going to continue to be a top 10 duo, in the league for years to come because they're only 26 and 23 years old. So they both have about 3 to 5 years each to where they can still play at this level before they reach, prime concerns. But yeah, I mean, also another guy I don't have to spend much time on because we know what Joe Burrow is capable of, and the Bengals are only going to get better. They're not going to decline. I don't see it happening. Like I said, maybe need to go ahead and get at least a mid-tier tight end to kind of complete, the offense. And also, let me not forget about Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd is great as well. So you got three great receivers. You got a great running game with Joe Mixon, and like I said, Joe Burrow can run as well. He's not no dude who, rolls out of the pocket and you'd be like, oh my God, why? Um, so you just get that tight end, and I feel like your offense is completed for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, top three is also very interchangeable. It's probably the most interchangeable this list can get. But this is what I feel is the right top three with all things considered. Now at number three, I have my personal last year's pick for MVP. Super Bowl appearance this year, Philadelphia Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts. Another one of my favorite guys to watch in the league. I mean, the dude is a great competitor, team leader, and is great with proving the doubters wrong. I mean, you know, he does have a great team around him. I have to admit that the dude has a very, deep plethora of talent with Devontae Smith. He had Miles Sanders. He's no longer there anymore. Miles Sanders signed with the Panthers this offseason. Um, but I mean, a still very deep roster as far as offense is concerned. I mean, defense as well, top to bottom. Still got Jalen Hurts. You still got DeAndre Swift. You still got AJ Brown. Devontae Smith, Kez Watkins, Dallas Goedert. And a great offensive line as well with Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, and Cam Jurgens. I'm sorry. According to what I see here, Marcus Mariota is actually now the backup quarterback of the Eagles. I was assuming that I was under the impression that he was still backupping in Las Vegas, but that is not true. He is backupping now in Philly. But he wasn't a part of this list anyway, so it doesn't even matter that well. Like I said, Jalen Hurts is a tremendous leader. Strong will mentality, was taken out of one of the biggest games of his career a few years ago. with Alabama, and for Tua Tagovailoa, and they won the championship. But still came back, transferred, came back that next season with the Oklahoma Sooners and brought them to the college football playoffs, even though he did fall short in that as well. But he still managed to come in and, prove the doubters wrong and let everyone know that I can be a legit starting quarterback for the NFL. And now at their points in their careers, we can, affirmatively say with confidence that Jalen Hurts has, overly succeeded and passed Tua Tagovailoa at this point in their careers. Obviously, they're both still young, but as of right now, I mean, of course, and not just with Tua's, injury history and issues, but take those away, I still think you would take, Jalen over Tua. I mean, I know I most certainly would, obviously, with this list that I've orchestrated, but like I said, he's extremely tough and durable. I'm not gonna let what you say about him affect his or his game at all. Extremely poised in the pocket, and late game situations. Can step in and drop with precise velocity on his throws. Rare. He has a very rare athletic ability, and actually is pretty big and stocky for a quarterback in the NFL. With a very eluding pocket presence, elite play extensions. Um, like I said, elite play extending ability. Um, excels very well with RPO like plays. Superb rollout passer. I mean, Jalen Hurts can do it all, man. Definitely, the Eagles have their franchise quarterback going forward for years to come. Uh, with 100% certainty. This year, he passed for 3,701 yards, completing 57% of his passes, with 22 touchdowns, averaging about 8 yards of completion, 6 interceptions, only sacked 38 times, passer rating of 102 with a QBR of 66. Rushing stats was actually out of this world as well. 165 carries for 760 yards, 5 yards of carry, 13 touchdowns as a NFL quarterback, and 5 fumbles. And it was durable. Played 15 games for the Eagles this season. Obviously, brought him to the Super Bowl. Things just did not go well. More specifically in that second half against the Kansas City Chiefs. But I mean, when you're going up against Pat, not much that you can do to a certain degree. Coming in at number 2, I have Buffalo Bills quarterback. Also another one of the 3 MVP finalists this year, and Josh Allen. Big quarterback with a rare skill set, top tier arm strength. Josh Allen, you can debate between him and Pat who has the best arm in the league. But just a great overall athlete, excellent mobility, a threat while running with the football because he's so big. He's gonna be hard to sack with him being 6'4", 6'5" ish, and can break tackles at an extremely high rate. Hard to sack. Even hard to tackle, like I said, in the pocket and in open field, with a very quick release on his throws. I mean, very gunslinger like ability. He's just an elite football player, man. Great winner. Elite field vision in the pocket and on the run. Has a upper echelon deep ball. Great leader and competitor. Obviously, we saw how well he advocated for his, ailing teammate Damar Hamlin after his, tragic and traumatic incident on the field a couple of months ago. Also, love for Damar. Yeah, I mean, not much time I got to spend here on Josh Allen either. We know what Josh Allen's capable of. Stefon Diggs is expressing some concern now with him, not attending the first day of training camp or whatever it was. Or was it OTA or something like that? Just know he wasn't there for something. But I do think him and Josh can continue to be a top 5 duo, wide receiver quarterback duo in the league. But not just him. Josh has James Cook. Also Gabe Davis, Dawson Knox has his tight end, so he got the pieces around him. Even, despite the fact that he was sacked 33 times this year, still has a great, O-line to his disposal. Josh passed for about 4,283 yards, completing 63% of his passes, 8 yards, a completion, 35 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, which is kind of, concerning. But when you have such a gunslinging ability, sometimes those balls can be altered when you are getting hit. Like I just mentioned, 33 times getting sacked. Had a passer rating of 97 and a QBR of 71. And rushing stats went 424 carries, 762 yards, 6 yards a carry, 7 touchdowns rushing, and 8 fumbles. So they need to work on his ball control. But with him being so big, I believe that's not going to be hard to fix. And, basically played every game for the Bills this season. Josh is great. Obviously, still got to prove, how well he can perform and his winning ability in the playoffs and being a playoff performer and clutch time performer in big games, late game situations, and decision making. Like I also mentioned earlier with Dak Prescott, he's kind of in that same room as well because they've also had, great regular season repertoire, but when they brought it to the postseason, they haven't been, of course they've had like a couple of conference, appearances, conference championship games. I meant to say, but they have a team constructed of Super Bowl caliber and have not reached the Super Bowl yet. But when you have to go through Patrick Mahomes, that is not a easy task, even with how great Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills even are. But now we're at the end of this list, and now obviously you haven't heard this guy's name all list, so you know that he's number 1. Not too much I have to go on and say. You guys know who he is. 15, man. At number 1, Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes. Simply just a one of a kind dude, generational talent. The dude has just been one of the GOATs since like his second year in the NFL. Like since his first full season in the NFL, the dude has not shied away from the moment. Watching him even at the age of 17 now is just mind blowing. And it's like the thing about it that makes it so aggravating is the fact that it's natural. Like you expect him to look in the crowd and throw the ball to the nearest receiver. And it's normal for him. Like that's just the Patrick Mahomes style of play. Because, like I said, he has a rare skill set. The dude's a winner. He's been winning since his first full season. Now a 2-time Super Bowl champion, 2-time MVP. Actually, he just won the MVP this season. I took into consideration kind of why he got it, but I just think that when it comes to sports, you have to look at the most valuable, like the title within itself. And how I look at it is, you take the finalists, right? Because they always bring down the 3 finalists in every award. But as far as the MVP is concerned, it's called the Most Valuable Player Award for a reason. And how I would look at it is, if I take the 3 guys that are mentioned here, which team ends up being the worst? If their team ends up being the worst, that guy is the MVP. Their quarterback will be the MVP. So, Patrick Mahomes actually managed to win a Super Bowl this season with the likes of Isaiah Pacheco, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, Travis Kelce. Superb NFL, O-line. Oh, can't forget about Juju as well, but Juju is now gone. So, and I've heard the possibility of DeAndre Hopkins going there, which would be great for Pat. I mean, we saw what he did both with and without Tyreek Hill. So I don't believe that, obviously, after what he just proved, that DeAndre Hopkins is a necessity. That would be more so of a benefit for DeAndre Hopkins to play, contending football with how great that he is. But as far as it pertains to Pat, I don't think it benefits Pat that well because, like I said, we saw what he's done and how productive he's been with and without Tyreek Hill. But I mean, the dude, he's passionate, extremely high IQ for the game of football. He's tough. The dude sprained his ankle mid Super Bowl game and was like, with very vulgar and explicit language towards the sideline. I'm not coming out. Like, I'm staying in this game. When you have a guy of that caliber, that's like Kobe Bryant-esque, elite pocket presence, he's just the best at everything. Every category you got, aside from scrambling, but as like what it means as a passing, throwing quarterback, Pat is one of one. And he's actually kind of dual threat because he also can scramble with the best in the league as well. Obviously, a Cush performer, doesn't shy away from the moment, is an elite big playmaker. Actually excels in RPOs as well, like Jalen Hurts. Is a very accurate, wild, like risky, streaky passer when and without being in rhythm. This year his passing stats went for 5,000. My goodness, 5,250 yards for 41 touchdowns. Completing about 67% of his passes. Average about 8 yards of completion. 12 interceptions. But I mean, when you're throwing like that, I think 12 interceptions isn't, all that bad. Was sacked 26 times and had a passer rating of 105, QBR of 78, and rush stats went for 61 carries for 258 yards. Average yards per carry was 6, 4 touchdowns and 5 fumbles, and played basically every game for the Chiefs. So yeah, that concludes my list, man. Let me know where you thought I, had someone in the wrong spot. Who would you put where? What would you change? Either on my personal social media or the podcast social media. And even, if you're watching this on YouTube, put in the comments below. I didn't add my personal social medias into the last video, but I will start from now on. And also, I have come to the conclusion that I'm going to start doing video podcasts. I am currently waiting on a new set of headphones to come in, which should be coming in the next couple of days. So starting, hopefully, I can guarantee probably next week, I will start doing video podcasts for the ones who prefer to listen and watch the podcast on YouTube. But if you are someone who prefers audio only, then you would need to go to Spotify and listen there because I'm having a little bit of complications trying to get my podcast on Apple Podcasts. But I will, figure it out. As you know, I don't have a team. I'm doing everything on my own. So I will figure it out and get the show on there as soon as possible. Thank you guys for listening. Continue to have a great day. Always remember, don't underestimate, appreciate, man. Appreciate y'all. I'm gone.